you can get that money into an account to maximize your investment opportunities. Now, with that being said, we have what I would consider a Buffalo food legend, a young legend, okay, a legend in the making, maybe a legend, and let's call it that, a legend in the making.
You can call it that.
Yeah, you can. Thank you. But a legend nonetheless, at least in my eyes, in the eyes of a self-proclaimed foodie, and what we can all, describe different ways to call ourselves food lovers. I mean, the common term these days is foodie. People who love food, people who indulge in food, cook food, go out to eat all the time, have incredible, blog sites, websites like Donnie's. But BuffaloEats.org, if you haven't checked it out, you really have to go online. Like, I'd go online right after the show. If you're listening, go. You can multitask a little bit. That's fine too. Go to BuffaloEats.org and check out this site if you haven't already heard of it, because Donnie's story and how he started this thing in 2009 is really cool, and it's really incredible. And again, for somebody who loves to eat, who loves food, who loves going out to eat when we can, my wife and I, again, have 3 kids, so we get a lot of help from from the grandparents, Pete and Judy, nice. Lil and Roy, and that's wonderful. But we don't get a chance to go out as much as we'd like. Donnie, on the other hand, now I don't know. I didn't even get a chance to ask if he has any kids or not. But
no.
Well, okay, then
that's how I've done this.
There you go. So since 2009, Donnie has visited over 400 food establishments. I mean, think about it. Local food establishments around Western New York, which is just an incredible number, and it's so impressive. And if nothing else, that's the reason why he's a legend in the making in my mind. So without further ado, Donnie Burtless of BuffaloEats.org. How you doing this morning, brother?
I'm doing very good, Pete. Thank you very much for that introduction.
Oh,
hopefully
absolutely.
I can live up to that.
Well, there's no doubt you can. I mean, all you have to do is go to the site and check it out and see, what Donnie's been doing for the last couple of years. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I'll shut my trap here in a minute. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you come from, where you grew up, maybe how this love or interest in food kind of came from, what the inspiration was, and we'll kind of take it from there.
Sure. I'm a Buffalo born and bred kid. Grew up in Orchard Park. I really haven't left the city. I mean, or left the general area. I started off in a weird way as a super picky eater. I was a guy who would only eat the chicken sandwich or the chicken fingers at a restaurant. I would drive my family crazy. They'd have to make special food for me in Thanksgiving. And my best friend is Lebanese, and my mom always told me, you go somewhere, you be polite, you eat the food, you say please and thank you. And his family put in front of me food that I had never seen before, and just out of sheer fear of being rude, I pretty much ate everything that was in front of me and had like this epiphany of food that I think looks weird or maybe I was afraid of could be delicious. And that literally just started me on a path where I wanted to eat everything I could.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, like almost like a checklist. Like I just made this huge list and I was like, I'm going to try every cuisine, every restaurant that I can. And the blog really started as a way for me to just keep track of it because we were going to so many restaurants.
Right.
All I wanted was a name and pictures of food. And all of a sudden we started getting feedback and we started getting people commenting and I was like, I guess I have to take this seriously. And then we started writing reviews and that was 6 years ago and it has been a path.
Yeah, I'll say it. And if you go to the site, when you do go to the site, you do podcasts. Are they weekly podcasts?
Yeah,
weekly or so.
Yeah, so in 2011, me and my brother decided we listen to podcasts all the time. Like that's like our number one thing. Where if I'm in my cubicle at work, because I have a normal 9-to-5 job. Right. This isn't my full-time gig. To make time pass, you listen to a podcast about sports or whatever topics. And I was like, somebody should do a podcast about Buffalo food. Like we've met enough people. My brother is a music guy, so he has all the equipment. I was like, we can do this. So from 2011 to 2012, 2013, we recorded a podcast every week for 2 years. So we recorded about 103 episodes.
Wow.
And it was, chefs. It was, people like Janice Oken, the former restaurant reviewer for the news.
The infamous Janice Oken.
Yes. Very interesting having her come over to our house and sit in our living room and record a podcast. Cool. Yeah. This was all done out of our house. Like, we had a little studio set up in the basement. And so we'd be like, yeah, come on over. And then somebody would come over like, all right, now we're going to go into our basement. And you kind of see their face be like, okay. Like not sure what they got themselves into essentially.
Right.
And we did that for 2 years, and we took a break in 2014 because it was a little exhausting to try to keep it up every week. And we just recently got started back up with our good friend Krista, who is the food editor at Buffalo Spree and runs Nickel City Chef. And so me and her are basically splitting duties now. She'll host an episode, I'll host an episode. We have a nice little studio built above Hydraulic Hearth in Larkin.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the
Excellent.
Zemsky family was very, very generous in setting us up with a little place. And
awesome.
And so I've kind of gotten reinvigorated into doing the podcast again. So we're about 16 episodes deep in that. That the goal is every week, but we don't put ourselves to it too hard.
It's not a strict timeline for
it. No.
Because again, this is a hobby, right? But now you've got an audience, if you will, and people kind of look to you for insights and stuff like that. I mean, there probably is a little bit of an expectation, like hey, when's the next review? Hey, when's the next podcast? Kind of thing going on. I would imagine. Yeah,
it's weird how that's happened. We've been very fortunate that this last 12 months, the boom in Buffalo's restaurant scene has been so exciting.
Yeah.
And with that, a lot of people are kind of looking to our site being like, well, what's the deal with all these new restaurants?
Right.
And so, me and my wife run the website, Buffalo Eats, and we kind of were like, I guess we really have to start stepping up and go into these places as soon as possible. And it's a tricky thing because people want to know what a place is like as soon as they can, but those restaurants are still figuring out so much. So it's hard to go to a restaurant like the third day in and give it like a review.
Right.
When in like 3 months it could be
still ironing out the wrinkles, early on, and with service and how things work in the kitchen.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I worked in restaurants pretty much my whole young life going through college, so I know how the whole thing runs. And
exactly.
I've worked in a couple restaurants where was the initial launch, and you really can't get a gauge that early as to the quality of the establishment, the food, the service, all that either. Yeah. So, I totally get that.
Like half the staff might turn over after the first month.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. Yeah. The chef might be gone.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know how temperamental chefs can be.
Yes.
There's no question about that. I just want to give out the numbers just in case there's anybody out there who wants to give us a call. It was a question for Donnie, who has an insight for Donnie, maybe a tip for Donnie. Locally,
always looking.
Yeah, always looking for tips. So I'm sure you are. Locally, we're 883-5000. And if you're in Rochester or Canada, we're at 1-800-684-2848. Again, locally, 883-5000. Rochester or Canada, 1-800-684-2848. If you have an insight, if you have a tip for Donnie, if you have a question for Donnie, give him a call. And we'd love to hear from you. But I want to go back to kind of how this thing evolved, how it started.
Yeah.
You said you have your wife. You kind of have been partners in crime, if you will, in this initiative from inception, and no kids, which makes it a lot easier.
yes,
right.
It does.
And I did want to ask you about. Let's just be blunt. Ask you about budget. I mean, it costs quite a bit of money, especially with some of the higher end places. And there's a lot of great new places, like you said, that have opened up that they're going to cost you a pretty penny. I mean, is that a tax write off, or how does that work for you? You're an accountant, by trade.
Yeah, I know, right? I should have these things figured out. It was harder, I guess, in the beginning. When we first started, I had just gotten into my professional field, but my wife was still in grad school. And we were living in an apartment in Allentown, so we didn't have a lot of money.
Right.
So I guess those were the years where we were trying so desperately to find those cheap eats, like the places that'll cost $20 for people to eat. And we knocked out a lot of really great ethnic restaurants and little bars and pubs. Luckily she's now gainfully employed, and we have a little bit more income. It's a tricky line. I guess it's where it's our main hobby. And when we travel primarily to eat.
Right.
Our vacations are centered around.
That. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Every roadie we go on, because we travel now with the cheerleading.
Oh, yeah.
We flew this time, but we're doing different travel around the country.
Yeah.
Chicago, Columbus, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Atlanta, Charlotte.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the research that I'm doing actually all the research I'm doing is, okay, what's the regional cuisine that I need to try? Like pizza and wings here, beef on weck stuff. And where am I going to go? What are the locals saying? What are like the local websites saying about the quality of food and where I should go? So I totally get that, but unfortunately,
you could go.
I was going to say that's a horrible thing. I was going to say, unfortunately, we have 3 kids. That completely carries no weight whatsoever. So you scratch that comment off the record completely.
Yes.
No, we love the kids, and actually they love to eat too. They love to try different stuff. So I totally feel that. As far as kind of maybe moving up the ladder from cheap eats, like what do you recall? Like what might have been that first place that you hit that was a little bit further up that ladder of higher quality food in Buffalo that really kind of clicked it into gear for you?
It's not necessarily open anymore. But when Mike A's opened in the Hotel Lafayette, and they brought in Chef Ed Forrester and Tony Reals, who runs their bar program. I was lucky enough to go to a press invite, and it was just like 10 people, and it was before they opened. They're like, we just want to show you guys what we're doing, and it was a 12-course meal that just blew me away. That I had never had any of that caliber of food locally,
right.
and like what I thought was like coming in Buffalo's food scene. I was so excited.
Right.
And I mean, it's not necessarily a meal I dropped, $100 on, and it's not, I was very fortunate to be invited into this little group of people, but it made me so happy to see people trying something like that in the area that it made me feel good that chefs to come were going to really not be afraid to fail. Like not have that thought where they're like, if we try this, it's not going to work in Buffalo, because I think it will. Right. And obviously the restaurant, changed its path, and it's kind of split into 2 now, but the restaurants that we've seen open in the last year have definitely take that as an inspiration, I think. And
right.
I mean, that was the meal where I was like, I can't stop this blog. Like, there's exciting things coming. Like, I have to keep doing this for as long as possible.
That's so cool. And if you're a legend in the making, certainly Mike A is a legend.
I mean, he's
a local legend.
He is the guy. Yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt. So we're going to take a break here in just a second.
Hi, this is Jim Kelly, and you're listening to Faith, Food, and Football with Pete Tasca on WDCX.
Welcome back to Faith, Food, and Football with Pete Tasca. And just as a side note, if you've been injured at work or on the job or anything to that effect, make sure you give Jeff Ganji of Losi and Ganji a call today. Don't waste another second. He'll work hard to get you the right and proper judgment that you deserve. Here in studio, right here on Faith, Food, and Football, again with Pete Tasca on WDCX FM 99.5 with Donnie Burtless of BuffaloEats.org. Donnie's starting to kind of give us a little bit of insight into his food passion, his food adventure that started about 6 years ago, and now has become this incredible landing spot, blog site, BuffaloEats.org. So Donnie was telling us a little bit about how this thing really kicked into gear at Mike A's at the Lafayette Hotel downtown. Mike A's is no more, but it's kind of morphed into a couple of different food venues now. One of the things I asked Donnie during the break here was whether or not he had ever eaten at the Rue Franklin, which was given a 10 plates, I think, by Andrew. How do you pronounce it? Andrew Galarno?
Galarno.
Galarno.
I say it. I don't know.
Galarno, however it's pronounced. Yeah, maybe one of these days we'll get Andrew on the show as well. But 10 plates, I mean, that's basically 10 out of 10. You hadn't hit the Rue Franklin yet, which was a little bit of a surprise. But, again, that's a big money move right there. I mean, you're probably looking, if you're going for the home run there, you're spending a couple $100. So
that's one of those special event types.
Absolutely. I've never dined there either. I have a friend of mine. His name's Joe Ingrando. He's another foodie as well. And he's eaten there, quite a few times and always talks about it. And that just reaffirmed in my mind, like, another place that we have to add to our list, my wife and I, of places we need to hit. So with that being said, you have a top 10. Top 10 on the site. Yes. And it's not your favorites in no kind of order, right? And in particular, but some of your favorites. Tell us about the top 10 and maybe tell us why these spots are on the top 10.
Yeah. So when we took a brief hiatus last year for about like 2 months, and me and my wife were kind of messing around, and we were trying to think of a way when we relaunched the website to make it exciting and easier to use. And the number one question we always get from family and friends and people visiting is, where should I go out to eat? And instead of always like having to list like a whole thing, we were like, why don't we just make a section on our website where we can point them to and be like, listen, these are the places you need to eat.
Right.
So we had 2 ways. We did Buffalo Eats Approved, which is our thing of our way of saying like, we really like these restaurants. Like, these are pretty good places, businesses, grocery shops. And then we made the 10, we call it. And that was, in our opinion, if you're coming to Buffalo, these are the 10 essential things that you should visit that you might not get anywhere else. And so there's no math to it, I guess. It's kind of just me and my wife sitting down and being like, what are the 10 places that if we stopped the blog and just ate what we wanted to eat and not like try new places, where are the 10 places we would just constantly just keep going back to?
Right.
And so,
I'll throw out a couple of names for you that I know are on those. Bar Bill.
Barbell in East Aurora, yes.
Right. Now, pretty much, if you've heard of Bar Bill, you know it's famous for wings. And why Bar Bill, in your opinion?
So we figured we had to have a place on the list that had the Buffalo comfort foods of like wings and beef on weck. And I personally think that Bar Bill is probably holds the standard for both of those things in Buffalo. It's the only place in Buffalo I can think of that does both exceptionally well. And the consistency there is outstanding. I mean, I grew up in Orchard Park right down the street, so I've been going there for 15 years, and I've always had, a good to great meal there. Right. So in my opinion, it was like, if you're going to go anywhere, you stop there, you can cross both off your list. They're very good renditions of both dishes, the wings and the beef on weck. And it's kind
Don't get any more Buffalo than that, right?
No. And it's they always had that knock for being kind of bad service and like, it's kind of like
it's like a diners, drive-ins, and dive type of place, right?
And they don't take credit cards, and there's no real like rhyme or reason. You just have to like tell the bartender you want to sit, and then they'll be like, "Yeah, I'll get to you when we'll get to you." Like, and they, because they're so busy, they can afford to be like
That's
that.
Right.
But I like that. Like I like the kind of
unpretentiousness, if you will, right?
Yeah, and I don't want to say a hassle to eat there, but you have to go out of your way to eat at this restaurant, and I don't know, I love that place.
Yeah. Bar Bill in East Aurora. Definitely. I've been there myself. It's great.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk a little bit within this top 10.
Yeah.
Your kind of passion for the locally sourced, locally farmed ingredients that are showing up on so many, tables now. We have a couple of these restaurants that have popped up. What are your, top ones there? Buffalo Proper, I see on the
Buffalo
list of the
Proper
Black Sheep. Those are Bistro Europa previously, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Those are a couple of the forerunners in that area, if you will, as far as I understand. But you tell us about it.
The one funny thing that's happened as we've run this website is that me and my wife have kind of grown into, we were all about local restaurants. Like, that was the number one thing. We didn't eat at chains, and we wanted to support local restaurants. And as we kept finding ourselves more and more getting into the scene, we started meeting farmers, and we started going to farmers markets. And we were like, you know what? We really actually care about local farms almost more than anything else right now. And that's a huge passion that me and my wife share. And so when a restaurant goes out of their way to source locally great products instead of going to, national, companies, we can't celebrate it enough. So what the Gedras are doing at Black Sheep, and they did it previously at Bistro Europa, is outstanding. I mean,
I've heard nothing but great things about it. Still haven't eaten there yet either.
It's a great restaurant. They have some things on the menu that maybe people would be like, what is this? Like, what is a blood risotto or what is a skin fritter? But I swear, if you just let them, if you put your faith into what the Gedras do with that menu, and you just open up and be like, you know what, I'm just going to try it. You will not be steered wrong. Right. And they take such care of the local products they use to make sure that they're shining as bright as possible. And they're, I mean what Ed Forrester's doing at Buffalo Proper, a very similar thing. I mean, the majority of their proteins there, the pork, the chicken, I mean, those are all from local establishments. And I mean, we have some great farms in this area that do amazing work. And those two restaurants in particular do a fantastic job of just showcasing what we can get locally.
That's what I've heard. What about the Black Market food truck? And even before you kind of give us your thoughts on that, I know you. I'm sure I saw it on the website. You've had some connection with Lloyd Taco Truck and those two fellas. And I mean, I watched. I had DVR'd the I think it was on CNBC.
The restaurant startup
episode, and that was just one of the coolest things I've ever watched, because those two guys they're almost made for TV.
Yes.
You just watching those, and with and one of the things that really sold the two gentlemen who ended up investing with them, national restaurateur, food figures,
big deals,
big time guys that were all in with Lloyd Taco, but the branding. And it started right here in Buffalo in its most humble beginnings, and they really got the whole food truck scene started, and they fought for food truck rights and things like that. Now they're taking it to the next level. Tell us a little bit about maybe your connection to Lloyd Taco, and then tell us about the Black Market food truck.
Well, with Lloyd Taco, I was fortunate to meet Pete and Chris, who are the owners, very early on when Lloyd was just one food truck that was parked on Main and Mohawk Monday through Friday, and trying to just make it happen. And I think a lot of people in the food community saw what they were trying to do and were excited, because everyone knew if they can pull this off, if they can make this happen, if they can inspire other people to open food trucks, if they can get legislation passed that makes this not so, like, is this illegal? I don't know. Are we doing
right?
I mean, they were the people that literally laid the groundwork for where we are now, with a food truck lineup of maybe 40, I think, locally, and Tuesdays at Larkin that brings in 4,000 people to
just awesome.
Yeah. Those guys, I think their appearance on that show, in my opinion, is the single best national coverage of Buffalo I've seen in a long time. I mean, we've been on, Anthony Bourdain's show, which a lot of people didn't really like. Diners, drive-ins, and dives come here, but you're not really talking about Buffalo. You're just like talking about a kitchen essentially for 5 minutes. These two guys, even though they didn't really harp on the Buffalo, New York, represented Buffalo so well and made it. Did. And it was weird. I was watching it. I was like getting like choked up. I was like so proud that like they were doing so well. It's an awesome thing to see two guys who have worked so hard to succeed so well and to be where they are.
And it's a great product.
Their really tacos are like nothing else you can get locally.
And they're going to be doing their own tortillas now.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah.
Which is huge. Which I forgot the fellows' names. Bastianich, I think is
Joe Bastianich and I think Tim Love. Tim
Love. Yeah, they basically push them into. Listen, you're not getting the money for the most part. You're not getting the investment unless you start doing your own tortillas, and so that's going to take it up to a whole different level, of course.
Yeah.
And really looking forward to them opening up a storefront. Looks like Hurdle and possibly Elmwood as well.
Yeah, I think Hurdle definitely is going to be. Hopefully, I'll have an interview with them shortly. But I think Hurdle's going to be a restaurant with a bar and a typical sit down restaurant. That'll be very exciting to see. Elmwood, I know they have plans to use it kind of as a big kitchen. And I think maybe the retail side might come later.
Right. Okay.
But it definitely seems like, I mean, they have 4 trucks already. We've all heard rumors of maybe expansion, and those guys are taking over the world.
Yeah, absolutely great. It's great stuff. Great Buffalo story there. So tell us about the Black Market food truck.
So the Black Market guys. So both of those trucks are on our 10 list. Lloyd, because I think it's the best late night food you can get. If you're out, and
we all know what that means in Buffalo.
If you're out at a certain hour, they're the best food you can have. No
offense to Jim's Steakout.
No. I lived in Allentown, right behind Jim's Steakout. I know Jim's Steakout very well. But I love what they do, and their food is great. And what they do with their menu, and they actually source locally. Lloyd, not locally, but like source really quality ingredients.
Right.
And then Black Market is 2 guys, Mike and Christian, who just wanted to take what you could find on a food truck up a level. And we can all get a burger, and we all can get some French fries or hot dogs, but they wanted to say, why can't we serve restaurant quality and diverse menu items on a food truck and really compete with what you can get at a restaurant? And through their banh mi sandwiches, which is like a Vietnamese baguette.
Love that sandwich.
Yeah, it's so good. Their arancini balls, their
They're kind of eclectic.
Yeah. I mean, they touted themselves when I first met them as a gourmet deli. They're trying to do as many different things as possible, and I was just so blown away by what they were trying to do on their food truck and how well they did it that I think it's worth going to the truck just to see what they're doing that day and to see like what came through their minds that were like, yeah, let's throw that on the menu.
You mentioned banh mi. I just as a side note, I had lunch yesterday at Joe's Deli on Elmwood Avenue, and for the second time in about the last month, I could not get the sandwich that they call the body. Which is like a variation on a banh mi.
Yes.
It's pork loin and ham and pickled jalapenos, carrots. So oh my gosh, that sandwich is just phenomenal. Like I'm hooked. I'm absolutely hooked. But going on to just a couple more of these that are on your top 10 list. Carmelo's out in Lewiston is number one, and then I want you to touch on the Elm Street Bakery, which I've been hearing and so many great things about the Elm Street Bakery.
To talk about
well, tell us about that, just so we don't run out of time. Tell us about your thoughts on the Elm Street Bakery first.
So the Elm Street Bakery, me and my wife have always been a fan. I mean, it's in East Aurora, not too far from Barville. It's a nice 1-2 punch if you have the stomach room. But it's a gorgeous building that this family renovated, and we fell in love with it when it was a bakery. Like just from the bread and their pizzas that they were doing, like that was enough. Like me and my wife would go once a month at least, make the drive from the city into East Aurora. In April of last year, they hired a chef to do like a dinner service. So the chef Brad Rowell, who's a super talented guy, he came in and developed a menu that kind of rotates on a weekly basis, but uses the huge wood fire oven in the middle of the kitchen that you can see that it's a gorgeous oven. You can kind of sit at the bar and watch them cook in it. And everything they do pretty much is cooked out of this wood fire oven that they get to like 700 degrees. So it's like, roast chicken, roast vegetables.
I'm getting hungry, Daddy. It's early, but I'm getting hungry.
Bone marrow. They did a French onion soup that they somehow cooked in a wood fire oven, which it just looked great and tasted great. And it's just
is it a small place?
You know
Is it
what?
tough to get a seat, in other words?
It's tough to get a seat because it's so popular.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's some people in East Aurora who literally eat there 3 times a week. You know what? You can make reservations. I think if your party's like 6 people or over. We've always had good luck just grabbing a seat at the bar. Personally, that's my favorite place to eat in a restaurant. I know like people love their booths. They love to sit down at a table. But for me, like sitting at the bar, having a conversation, having a couple small plates of things, like that's the way to eat.
Oh, that is the way to eat.
And so their bar is huge. It's got like 20 seats on it. So usually you can pull right up. The chefs will talk to you as they're preparing stuff.
Oh, my list of spots I have to hit is getting longer and longer. Carmelo's out in Lewiston. Give us a few thoughts on Carmelo. It's been around for a while, but it's got a great reputation.
Carmelo's is a fantastic restaurant. Carmelo is doing an amazing job also of using local products. I mean, that was probably one of the first places I had Tea Meadow Pork, which is this farm out in Lockport that raises heritage breed hogs, essentially. And what he does with the pork and he's a dessert like mastermind. Like he's made the candy bar, he's called it, which is this like ice cream bar it's amazing. Like I personally think up there with Lombardo's, like those 2 restaurants are the most romantic places you could take a date. The vibe of the restaurant,
Lombardo.
Yeah. I mean, you just go in there and everything feels like it's very well designed and very well run, and the service is outstanding.
And of course, the food has got to be fantastic.
And the food is fantastic, yeah. And so we love Carmelo's. It's in Lewiston, so it's not an every week trip.
Right.
But I think what he's doing out there, like everyone should, at least when things start to get warmer and the trek isn't as long and cold. It's a can't miss restaurant in Buffalo or in Western New York, I guess.
Listen, we don't. I believe we're going to have Caesar Lauper coming in just a couple of minutes. But before we go to the break, I wanted to ask you if we do have Caesar coming in. We've run out of time.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask you to come back at some point down the line because there's so much more to talk about.
I would love to.
But before we do let you go,
yes,
your favorite pizza spot in Buffalo, New York. If you had to pick a pizza spot in Buffalo, New York,
this creates
what would it
fights.
be?
This creates fights. I would say if we're going wood fire, I would say Elm Street Bakery has the best pizza. It's more of a traditional Italian pizza. My family's from South Buffalo, so I'm gonna say Imperial Pizza if you want that traditional Buffalo style pizza.
Imperial Pizza.
Yeah, in South Buffalo.
Oh, interesting.
That's my jam. You kind of have to eat it on the hood of your car if you want to, but for Buffalo style, that's my number one choice.
All right. Well, Donnie Burtless of BuffaloEats.org. Hey, hang out with us for just another couple of minutes here, Donnie. We're going to go to a break, but when we come back, we may have Caesar Lauper of Money Matters on with us. We may not. If we don't, we're going back to Donnie Burtless because we got a lot more to talk about. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Dr. Riyad, if you need a